So when you're looking at a title like this, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? You're probably thinking of a short video of a fan geeking out about how much they love this franchise and how they're excited for the new series. Well, in my case, not really. Alright, let me talk. I'm not usually the type who would go after what you would call trending stuff. At most, I would usually tweet about my reaction to a topic and that would be it. I'm not the type to go out and make a video and waste my precious time that I could possibly be using for other projects that I'm more passionate about. This isn't necessarily a bad idea. It's always encouraged to put your opinion out there and potentially find new people who agree or even have a healthy debate about it if people don't agree. But to me, a lot of these videos do feel samey in a way. They'd constantly spout the same opinion on said topic and that would be it. Rinse and repeat. So in an attempt to make this video mean something further down the line, I'll be doing something a bit different. With the news that Brian Lee O'Malley is being involved in the new series, perhaps we can take a look at different pieces of information from the past and potentially give some new notes on what the series could change up. Now before we begin, we have to be aware of a few things. One being that I'm nowhere near what you would call a Scott Pilgrim fan. I like the movie and the game's music, but that's all from the franchise. So this is coming more from a place of critique than genuine fan rage. So keep this in mind. And 2, don't take anything of what I say seriously. This is an opinion piece and analysis more than anything. Not meaning to step on anyone's toes here, but just to have a nice discussion about it. So without further ado, let's get into this video analysis thing. Let's just get started. Before we get into any of the actual points in this video, we must first find out how we got here. What timeline of events happened for Scott Pilgrim to get so big that it managed to get a series on Netflix of all places? We must ask the question of, how did we get here? August 18th, 2004. Canadian author and comic creator Brian Lee O'Malley releases a 6-volume series titled Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, focusing on a 22-year-old young adult named Scott Pilgrim falling in love with a delivery girl named Ramona Flowers, having to defeat her 7 evil exes to be with her. The comic ran up until July 20th, 2010. Over its time, the volumes received praise both critically and from fans everywhere, and this leads us into August 10th, 2010. Under the development of Ubisoft, the Scott Pilgrim game was released to the public. A side-scrolling beat-em-up that retold the main story beats of the comic, but most likely due to the license with Ubisoft expiring in 2014, the game was delisted from all platforms and pulled from store shelves, never to be sold again. August 25th, 2010. A feature film based off the comics releases simply titled Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, adapting O'Malley's 6-volume run to an almost 2-hour feature, starring Michael Cera and Mary Elizabeth Winstead as both Scott and Ramona respectively. Unfortunately, the movie didn't make back its budget, making it a financial flop at the time for Universal, only making $49 million on an $85 million budget. Created alongside this was an animated short titled Scott Pilgrim vs. the Animation, focusing on the story before the events of the movie, with Scott attempting to date Kim Pine, but having to move by the end of the short. This aired exclusively on Adult Swim only a few times, and this was shortly dropped after the movie released. August 30th, 2020. To celebrate the movie's 10th anniversary, Universal re-released the movie in select AMC theaters in 4K and surround sound, and fans rejoiced. This coincided with the game having a remaster and re-release on January 14th, 2021, in both online and physical stores. And finally, on January 7th, 2022, it was announced that the Scott Pilgrim franchise would be getting an anime adaptation on Netflix, with Brian Lee O'Malley on board working on it. And that's how we got here. But now, with the new series on the horizon, what specific aspects from the past could we potentially pick so that the Netflix series could be the best it could be? Well, let's find out. When it comes to representation of different cultures, especially in TV or film, it can be somewhat of a double-edged sword, especially with how people perceive it. Go too much in one direction and people think there's too much of it. Go too much in the other way and you've got people who complain there's too little. I'm not usually one to complain, especially when it comes to topics and videos, but this is one aspect of the franchise that I think it can benefit from. In a world where people have a sort of umbrage with representation, the Scott Pilgrim comics have an especially very white cast, with only a few exceptions being Matthew Patel and Lives Chow. In fact, this was an issue that the creator himself, Brian Lee O'Malley, found looking back. In this article from NBC News, he states,
"In retrospect, it kind of seems that way. Guess I was just writing myself and I didn't even think about myself in terms of race. I grew up surrounded by almost exclusively white people in Northern Ontario. I just assumed I was white until proven otherwise. But then I realized that was not the case. That was not the case at all. Honestly, when I saw the Scott Pilgrim movie, it was kind of appalling to see just how white it was. To not even really see myself represented on the screen. I've sometimes joked that Scott Pilgrim is my fantasy of being a cute white indie rock boy, which, as an ostracized mixed-race weirdo, was something I occasionally wished for when I was younger. I guess I whitewashed myself out of my own story, and I got what I deserved."
It's good to know when the creator of the property acknowledges its faults, especially when it's been years, since a lot of them can fall into the trap of retconning features that weren't so important, much like how a certain writer keeps doing with a certain WB-owned certain franchise. So hopefully we can see Mr. O'Malley implement this into the future. Scott Pilgrim movie is a perfect example of how good the interpretation of an IP is done well. Hell, I'd even go as far as to say that it's one of the best live-action adaptations out there. It's cast perfect, even including two big players in Marvel's MCU, a plot that anyone can enjoy, special effects that are truly a sight to behold, and a score unlike any other. There's a lot of things I can call this movie, but I'll stop there. However, with how good this film is, there are a few aspects of the film that we could potentially use for this analysis. One thing we need to note is that Scott Pilgrim is not a video game movie. I repeat, Scott Pilgrim is not a video game movie. Sure, it has elements of video games, and maybe references here and there.
What do you play?
Wow, Zelda, Tetris.
Pac-Man was originally called Puckman.
What are you doing?
Getting a life.
But it's a far cry from movies such as Wreck-It Ralph and the like. Another thing we should be aware of is that the movie doesn't have all of the aspects of the comics. Now, putting an entire 6 volumes into an hour-and-a-half long picture is not easy, and a ton of scenes have to be left on the cutting room floor. That's easy for a person like me to understand, who wasn't really into the comics to begin with. But it did pique my interest to find out that the movie missed several big moments and characters, cutting out Lisa Miller and Knives' dad, and they're nowhere to be found in the movie, which, to be honest, seems like more of a missed opportunity than anything. Now, this last one isn't necessarily on the fault of the production team, but this is definitely the most pivotal aspect and must be noted: the promotion. Universal infamously offered no promotion to the film, causing it to bomb in theaters. But history might repeat itself with this one, as the new series falls on Netflix, which in all honesty I'm not that trusting of. I mean, have you seen the Q-Force trailer? The reason that the series got so much hate back in the day was because of the abysmal trailer for it. But who am I to judge? Maybe Netflix will actually do a good job this time around. Only time will tell. In the end, I really do hope this series ends up being great. While I've made it no secret that I'm personally not a fan of the Scott Pilgrim brand, I have a lot of friends who are. And even when the franchise itself has been dormant, the fanbase has done nothing but grow and thrive. Nowadays, people are making fan art of their favorite characters in the series. Notable creators have collaborated on different comic dubs of the series, and even dedicated fans have made full-on animations of the movie that have broken the 1 million view mark on YouTube. So it's safe to say that the fans are ready and hungry for more. And you know what? I'll be ready to give this series what it deserves when the time comes. And shout out to the homie Enlisted for helping me against the Miles 834 campaign. RT, the picture of apple juice to scare Miles 834.
Yo, shut the fuck up anyway.